Dayne Young and Brent Rollins with Film Don't Lie, presented by Breda Pest Management and ASW Distillery. We're looking at Georgia's defense against Missouri. And I know that we're going to start here, Brent, with a scramble from Brady Cook. It's something that Georgia's been susceptible to. Most good defenses are. Overall, though, as we're going to see, pretty good effort from this Georgia defense.
Yeah, pretty well contained them other than a few big plays and misplays. But the QB sort of draw design run game, and that was a great job, by the way, of JDJ of not getting a penalty, the horse collar penalty on this. But what was interesting is this was obviously something from a film study and during the bye that Missouri said, hey, and we're going to take advantage of this. And then two, I read like right in Gabe on Power Mizzou's notes, like right before the game, where Cook was talking about how great he felt. Like he felt as good as he had since before the first game. That to me, it was like, okay, he's going to be a runner in this game. And in the first half, that's sort of what you saw. I think it was six designed runs for him, 5 design runs on first and second down for 55 yards. He had one other scramble for 12. So 6 carries for 57 in the first. Nothing in the second half.
Small thing I want to point out here, because just one thing from this Missouri game, Georgia has a superstar that I think is budding, and we're seeing it more and more each week. Jalen Walker as an edge rusher. He may get more inside play with Dumas Johnson being out now. Don't think so?
I hope not.
Okay. I think he'll at least be in the rotation there a little bit. But anyway, it was just the fact that I know he doesn't make a play here, but I just love seeing that he gets downfield quarterback runs and he chases them the whole way best he can. Love that effort.
He's nonstop. Like he definitely took the Nolan Smith tutelage and has applied it quite well. Like he very much seems like that type of player for them.
I am going to gush over 11 this entire video as we see here. Early on, Missouri, this third straight game, Georgia's given up a touchdown to the opponent on its first drive. Vanderbilt and Florida the same. This one, though, an explosive to Luther Burden.
Yeah, and this is one where just a great design to get your guy that you want, the one-on-one. And veteran, sort of the savvy little nudge at the end. It wasn't terrible coverage, but it's one of the things that we've learned in certain, later, some of the throws to Weiss against Everett. If you just throw an absolute perfect ball and your receivers can catch like that, and like it's almost impossible to defend. Like the ball that Neighbors caught in the LSU Bama game, that throw and catch, you cannot, like it was perfect coverage. You can't do it any better. And they just, when the ball placement is that good and your receivers that good as well, and Burden was definitely like he's the real deal. Now overall, by the way, I think it very much pushed off. Jason, I agree. Like in terms of, yes, it's one of those, like the receiver, all like, yeah, it's just a savvy nudge, but the injury, whatever he did to his foot, like it was real, and he was a decoy. It seemed like for 2 quarters there. So
I love this angle though, because it just shows you how long this football's in the air. And I think with a guy like Burden, if you get him in one-on-one down the field, throw this always. Trust him to make it happen.
Again, not quite enough from a pressure standpoint. Early downs, shot plays. He did well. But Everett, by the way, in coverage, four receptions allowed on 7 targets, 97 yards in this touchdown. But made some plays later in the game.
What you say about Georgia here? You got me once. Didn't really get them again after that, at least to this extent. There are some plays, and we'll show some of those too. The thing that I'm seeing a lot right now is some back shoulder throws against Georgia. This was fourth quarter as well, but happened earlier in the game too.
I still don't know if this was complete. It's one of those where the call on the field was going to stand. I think regardless if they'd have called it incomplete, it would have standed. If they would have, since they called it complete, it did. I thought it was good sort of punch from Humphrey. But this in essence is the story of the game, because pre-snap you have Kamari Lassiter, and we saw so much of this with Lassiter at the star, hanging around, hanging on and almost shadowing in a way Burden, and then Humphrey and Everett as the 2 corners. In essence, a breakout game for Julian Humphrey. Only allowed 2 catches. This was one of them on 7 targets, 44 yards. So this was 33 of the 44 yards that he allowed. 53.3 passer rating, 2 pass breakups, just big time game, almost to the point where it will be interesting to see how much more of this Georgia does, because I think it actually, Tyke has benefits to him being on the field, especially when he's close to the football. But in a game like this, where the receivers are very much the focus, this I think you can see more of this as you go down the road.
Georgia runs a lot of stunts on defensive line. You don't see that here, though, and I think it shows some of the respect they have for Brady Cook to scramble on the edges, because everything works itself downfield, and he's able to step up in the pocket here and make this throw. You wonder if Georgia would have wished to run a couple more stunts early on to kind of prevent some of these. He just had all the time. He had comfort and can make a play.
That's good catch. By the way, Weiss, we talked about him as a contested catch guy. Two or three contested catches in this game.
He's a good player. Very good player. All right, another scramble from him up the middle.
Turf Monster got him a little bit.
Mainly showing this because Ole Miss is coming and Jackson Dart does this.
And I think that's the reason to show it, at least it's very much by design and almost a go-to for Ole Miss. And which, by the way, for those of you who happen to be watching, we are going to preview Ole Miss this evening a little later. Get that one recorded.
Scouting report's coming. Okay.
Yes.
Enough of Brady Cook. Let's get back to my love fest for Mr. Jalen Walker here.
And by the way, this is also a design QB draw. Like, I think it goes down maybe as a sack, and they got like a half a sack each, I think. But this was not a pass. Like, look at the running back coming out of the backfield, Yeah, he is lead blocking, and then 65 is pushing and then turning to block. This is another one of the
a lot of clear outs over here. This is like set up to give me a lane.
But Zion Logue did a good enough job here of fighting. Walker does a great job of making it congested and then just not stopping. So yeah, you get in essence sack. But that was going to be another one, like first and second. They were doing it on first and second down. As a design, and they tried again. Because, by the way, you as a quarterback, you don't stand up like that either. He was 100% running that one.
Well, a lot of times you'll see these edge rushers, once they get back here kind of behind the quarterback, they end up on the ground or having to push themselves off the ground. Really good balance from Jalen Walker to be able to help from the backside.
And really, that's why I say I don't want to see him off the edge, is because he's relentless, and the speed with the bend, like, I'm going to have a trivia question for you later when we get to the play that we're going to look at. I think the 11th out of the 12 we're going to look at.
There's the bend. There's the bend.
Like he's got it. Like, he might not have NFL level edge size, but he's got ability out there for days.
All right, next up here. They run this pistol a lot.
And tempo. This is where, like, they'd hit you here. Like, this is, I think, a 21-yard explosive play they got. But they went fast. Georgia, you see, is sort of getting lined up late. And because of it, you don't really get great pressure. They sort of flood concept here. More guys than you not necessarily have to cover, but get that in, get you flowing. Tempo. That's going to be a big theme, obviously, with Ole Miss, is when they have successful plays, especially successful down the field plays, they hit you with tempo, and they almost sometimes do it even to a detriment. But this is one where Missouri went tempo and executed quite well, 21-yard thing. And Jason, we agree. We said, I think I had said and written, we'd said it last week, that this was the best trio of receivers that potentially Georgia could face, and include all three.
And how do you create space if you're an offense against anyone, but this worked against Georgia too? Running back, kind of a delay getting out here to be a check down. Burden, who the world just revolves around. So Dumas Johnson comes here for the back. Burden runs here, has the corner and safety on heels, and then you just come in behind it with 5 here. Really good design from Missouri. And sometimes you're going to get beat that way just because you have to respect what Luther Burden can do over the top.
And that's going to be number 9 for Ole Miss. And then number 11 is going to be the little slot guy catching the ball and trying to do things with it in the slot.
You ready for a hit?
This was a very good hit. And by the way,
boom!
When you talk about, I was when I first saw it, I was like, oh, please tell me he didn't hit his head, and that they would call some sort of penalty. But this is what's interesting here, is that he looks that way. Like he goes to I've got 2-on-2 versus 3/2s. Like if you look at, like you've got Tyke, Malachi, and then the corner out there, 3/2, and then to the short side of the field, he's got corner safety. So he's got 2/2. So he goes first with his eyes to the left, and that plays right into the hands of the blitz call. You got the cross dog from the backers, and he should. That's one. If you're a future team playing Georgia, you should almost know that they're rarely going to give you the exact thing that you're looking at, especially, by the way, on third down. This was 3rd and 7. So the routes typically have to be a little bit longer. You got Damon Wilson dropping back into coverage there. But the beautiful job of Tyke of just hiding and then accelerating through the hole that's created from the edge with Walker pushing up upfield. That's great design. That's great execution. And then a great hit as well.
The exciting thing from this, if you just look at the speed that's coming at the pocket here, of course you have my best friend here in Jalen Walker, who comes down the field, opens up this wrap. I'm excited to see 33 here.
33 going to be in a lot of time.
Now, especially with Dumas Johnson out with the arm. I mean, getting in here, he was close to making that play too. You add that to Michael on the other side, and you just see a lot of very physical, fast pass rushers. And when Tyke can do that, you've said this all year, right? Tyke near the line of scrimmage is just that's
better.
That's where he needs to be.
He's way better there. Him out in space, no, avoid it.
Not everything was sunshine and rainbows for Georgia. This is probably one of the coverages that they wish they had back here.
Yeah, and it's one that I would love to hear Kirby talk about, because just pause it here. Right at the snap. So at the snap, you have a quarter half look, because Humphrey at the bottom of the screen is back. He's not squatting. So it's not like true cover 2. And he's getting back to that sort of deep quarter. Malachi is there overseeing Burden, who's right in front of him. And what's interesting about Lassiter is the positioning here, because I actually think this is a run blitz call, by the way, too, in a way. I'm almost thinking run because of the way the defenders and with the LB coming in, and then they end up running into each other. Walthour and I think Raylan Wilson maybe run into each other. It's all discombobulated. Boom, right there. Not good. Thus, I'm like more so versus a run than a pass. But the interesting part when you go back is Lassiter's leverage here. Because obviously if he's in a true sort of cover 2 type leverage, you want that guy going inside. You don't want it getting into that hole that is in the space up there above the SEC sign. But it's almost like he was playing slant, like initially, and then it could have been maybe a little more physical with the catch point. And the other part is, so he's looking here. It looked like he initially looked to see if the back was staying in, and he saw that the back was staying in. So then he takes his eyes to the receiver. I would think he's almost got to know, like, that's trips to the short side of the field. There's no other threats.
Yeah, by that time the receiver's taken 2 steps. By the time he's put his eyes back on him.
Right, and there's no other threats, so he can carry that. And you would think he would carry that a little more so than he actually did. Bullard, I think, was also a little late and didn't necessarily widen out, especially with where Malachi was playing and how Malachi was playing. And they just hit one on you. And they, by the way, they can play too. They can call good, they can call good stuff too. And I think this led to a touchdown shortly thereafter this.
Yeah, it did. And, scoreboard, you look here and you're like, Georgia had a comfortable lead at this point in the game, but it turned into one possession very quickly after.
Very quickly. Yep. And I think the next play is actually the touchdown.
Yeah, and the game was in the balance after that. Now, Georgia struggled at the edge here against Missouri's running attack and gave up some easy yards. And this was pretty much all game that this happened, where it looked like Georgia could make a tackle. Missouri would get 3 or 4 yards extra. This one turns into TD.
So there's so much with Missouri's running game that we showed this, how the outside zone play almost oftentimes rarely makes you, unless you whip somebody, and if you have a good back who can see lanes, it's hard to be right as a defense. Now, sometimes Georgia did there, but for the most part, they would get 4 and 5. And Schrader, by the way, I don't think he ever went down on first contact. was just phenomenal to watch. And you look at Georgia, by the way, playing man on Burden. You got man across because you're in the red zone. So the motion. And guess who else, by the way, runs this type of play and runs this type of play to the short side of the field and away from the tight end like this? Ohio State. Ohio State did this a lot to Georgia and did this in a way that they had some success here, because with the way you play this, like Raylan Wilson, 5, he has to almost be the edge defender here. And he takes one little step forward versus just working to the outside shoulder of 76. But the thing is, Munden's late getting there too. Like, even if 76 takes him out and he cuts inside, like you're still getting hit. He might not score, but you're getting inside the 5. Like, it's a tough running scheme to defend. I'd love to see, I thought Georgia would do more of it this year because of the lack of a running threat at quarterback. But, that dude's just good. And by the way, when you watch the Ole Miss preview and you talk about yards after contact, their 2 backs are as good as any at getting yards after contacts.
This particular play, too, I think was a perfect storm for Missouri to get the edge, because this is Walthour, and he's not one of the faster defensive linemen that Georgia has. And if he doesn't make that first initial push and get in there, not happening. And then Raylan Wilson, you mentioned, I mean, this is some of his first playing action here. So he'll improve. He's a great athlete. There's going to be a lot of good things there. But you have numbers and experience on Missouri's side there.
And that's, again, short side of the field, away from the tight end, stuff like that. You're not necessarily used to being hit there. And that's this type of play, this type of offense can do that. Like I said, Ohio State did a lot to them.
All right, here's the 2-point play to Luther Burden and a little bit of backyard ball here.
Yes, and a couple things. One, you kind of see why you minimally saw Tyke in terms of coverage. But 2, and this is just Burden being really good. The coverage was initially good. But I was kind of interested to see why Michael didn't really see what 79 was doing here. Like, he was running. That's phenomenal from their right tackle. Look at his stance, and he reaches him and gets to Michael's outside shoulder. That's great from the Missouri's right tackle. And I mean,
just look at the number of steps before Michael gets there.
Right. And that's elite tackle play from them. And once you get the edge like that, the running back's there too. Like, the QB has a window, especially if you don't have a second guy coming on his face. And luckily, I think it was 3 yards. Yeah. So 74 gets right to the end zone line. He hits on Munden, the right guard. Boom, gets right to there and then stops. Like, he's got the 3-yard cushion in college versus the NFL. That's a penalty in the NFL.
Brent, we've gone far too many plays without me talking about Jalen Walker.
Yes, we have. Dayne, I'm going to ask you a trivia question.
Okay.
Who do you think has the 2 highest pass rush grades on Georgia's defense?
Well, I'm assuming one's Jalen Walker.
One is Jalen Walker. Number 2, I think it's 2. It might be 2 versus 1. I can't remember exactly. It's Damon Wilson.
Oh, I would have not have gotten that.
When you talk about second long, and if you want to get after the quarterback, I need to see more of these 4 players on the field together. Wilson played 11 snaps, the most he's played since UAB. And by the way, his ability to hand fight and then bend and dip with speed and then stop it right there. Oh, that would be back it up a little bit. Look at that right tackle's right arm a little bit. No, I think that's called holding. Maybe.
I don't think we need the Zapruder. I don't need many angles. I can tell you, yes, that should have been a holding call here. And while I'm here, hello, Bend.
And the other best part of this play is Ingram Dawkins fighting like he did and being an athlete and making Cook not have an easy choice. Because if he's just standing there, waiting to bat the pass and gets blocked, no, he's working sort of either way and gives a little quick right, makes him look back, and then Walker is relentless with his pressure.
So are you telling me that in terms of like full-on pass rush, this is kind of your ideal set of Walker, Michael Williams,
On the
Ingram
inside.
Dawkins, and
Yep.
Michael on the inside.
Yep.
And
And
then Damon
TID and
Wilson
or
on the other
Brinson.
side? Yeah.
Yep. Those two kind of interchangeable to me. Both can win, both athletic. But yes, Wilson and Walker on the edge all day, every day on passing downs. And we saw it from the spring game with Wilson. Like, that dude has insane natural talent. There's a reason he was a 5-star recruit, and he's only going to get better.
Well, look, we can just point out here, this is how Georgia is different from most teams in the country. You're at this point in the season. You're at November. You're at 30-21. SEC East could be on the line in this game. And then you've got Ingram Dawkins, who hasn't played a lot of snaps this year. You've got Wilson, who hasn't played a lot of snaps this year. Here's Raylan right there, right? Like,
yep.
Come on. Like,
that's Jimmy's and Joe's. By the way, it is Wilson 1, Walker 2 in terms of pass rush grade right now.
Okay.
But still relentless. Like both those two guys. Whew.
And I feel like we have to show the clincher. And yes, if you're wondering what the play of the game is, it's going to be in a separate video. But we have to show the final interception that Bullard grabbed.
And I was really disappointed when this happened.
Because?
I lost the prop bet. We had 1.5 interceptions.
That's why it's for fun and not.
I thought there would be, like, this is the one. I thought the play of the game is going to be the outlier within that. But we talked about this. Look at third down. This is third down. Cook tries, he's 9 points down. It's a minute 40 game. He just tries to make a play and just doesn't. Bullard does a good job tracking the ball, staying in bounds. Great job from him. And like I said, third down. Beck was 8 of 12, 77, 2 TDs. Cook was 3 of 7 for like 35 or 38 yards and the pick. There's your game.
That's a ball game, ladies and gentlemen. Pretty good game from Georgia overall. And look, there's a reason that if you can get a quarterback off schedule and not doing the things they're not as comfortable with, it's easier. You can get some of those big plays. And the second that Georgia got a lead in this game and was able to extend it a little bit, Missouri's not a let's throw it 50 times kind of team. And when they became that in the fourth quarter, you saw Georgia have some advantages. If they were able to stick with the run a little bit more based on the clock, maybe this is a different game in a lot of aspects.
According to Patrick Garvin, I didn't really look myself. I should have checked, but he said this is the first 100-yard rusher since Chris Rod from Kentucky in 2020 against Georgia. Folks, if you're watching this, you got to hang around and you got to watch the Ole Miss preview later, because I actually think Georgia's better suited to defend Ole Miss's running game than Missouri's.
I agree with you. Hey, we're brought to you by Breda Pest Management, the official pest control of the Georgia Bulldogs. They protect Sanford Stadium and the Stegman Coliseum. They can protect your home as well. Also brought to you by ASW Distillery. Get your Hunker vodka. Every purchase of Hunker vodka benefits, to some extent, the Classic City Collective at UGA, and that is Georgia's NIL arm. Distilled by dogs. 5 of the 6 founders from ASW are UGA grads. Overall, Brent, thought Georgia had a solid game on defense.
Made plays when they had to.
I wouldn't even say the bending and not breaking thing. I don't think it was that. I think Missouri's just a really good team.
I just think they're good. And you played and you didn't make mistakes, and they did.
And other teams will see some of the things Missouri did, and they'll try to replicate it against Georgia. We'll see if that happens over the next couple of weeks.
I do feel a little vindicated for us, because we literally said, this is going to be a football game. This is going to be a game. And it was.
I was really close to picking Missouri to win it. I just thought so many of Missouri's strengths were some of the weaknesses that Georgia had. I said, but this game's in Sanford Stadium, and I haven't seen teams come in being able to dominate Georgia that way. Missouri did in some aspects. Like, Missouri tested Georgia more than Georgia's been tested in Sanford Stadium in a while. So credit to them, but credit to Georgia for withstanding that too.
Yes.
Like, that's what championship teams do. And man, I feel better about Georgia right now than I have at any point in this season, in terms of being able to make this three-peat potential run here. I know there's playoffs. I know Alabama's likely pending, and you got 2 weeks of tough games here, but there's a lot to feel good about with Georgia right now, with some of these younger guys coming on and being ready.
Yep, I agree.
We're wrapping up this defensive video. If you're watching live later on, we're not going live anymore tonight, but we'll have an Ole Miss preview for you, as well as Nazir Stackhouse. Got a lot to talk about with him. Georgia's next running back. That's not true, but
Stack.
I'm going to speak it into existence.
Ow.
Thanks to Breda Pest Management, ASW Distillery. For Brent Rollins, I'm Dayne Young. This is Film Don't Lie.